get your red voice. Come on, save some money and get your red voice. Save some money, call your family, keep your number, call everybody. Come on, call your mama and give her red voice. Come on, call your daddy and give him red voice. Call your brother, and your Grammy, call your cousin, and your auntie. Now everyone's got a choice, and we all know it's red voice for every woman and man all around our homeland.
Switch to Red Voice Bahamaland, and now you can keep your number. You could win your mortgage and utilities for a full year. Red Voice, the better choice.
Get your red voice.
The U.S. Embassy issues another crime warning. The United Nations urges the Bahamas to do more to fight human trafficking. Religious leaders meet with the VAT Implementation Committee. DEC workers get their Christmas bonuses. Plus, an 18-year-old called to the bar. Those stories and more coming up tonight. I'm Nikia DeVoe, and this is NB12. Joining us here at Cable 12 Studios, here are the stories coming out of the NB12 newsroom this evening. 4 days after acting Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis was robbed in his home, the United States Embassy in Nassau today warned Americans living in and traveling to the Bahamas to take precautions as armed robberies remain a major threat facing U.S. citizens living in and traveling to the Bahamas. The embassy says as the holiday season nears with its many celebrations, there is unfortunately an increase in criminal activities in the Bahamas. The embassy said in an email that it continues to receive reports of crime, particularly armed robberies and burglaries. It notes that within the past week, a high-ranking government official became the victim of crime during an armed invasion of his home. On Monday, 3 armed men drove onto Davis's West Ridge compound, accosted his unarmed chauffeur, and robbed Davis and his family at gunpoint in their home. The embassy cited 3 incidents within the last year when American visitors were robbed. The embassy noted that a man and woman were robbed by a knife-wielding robber in their Freeport hotel room. The email pointed out that other Americans have become victims of armed robberies in the Bahamas in the past year. The embassy warns that robbers and burglars will often conduct pre-attack surveillance by observing the intended property and/or victims. Embassy officials say this underscores the need for increased awareness of common activities which can directly impact personal security. As the country prepares to try its first 2 cases of trafficking in persons under the Trafficking in Persons law, the United Nations says the Bahamas still lacks a national plan of action to effectively address trafficking in persons. That's according to a UN rights expert who recently visited the country to compile a report on the nation's progress in this area. Paige McCartney has more on what was found in that report.
In October, Jamaican national Apollonia McLean Smith was charged with transporting a woman from Jamaica into the Bahamas for the purpose of trafficking in persons. She was the most recent person charged with the offense. At the time, Director of Public Prosecutions Vinay Graham Allen pushed for the matter to be a priority because of the serious nature of the allegations. She said trafficking in persons and for the purpose of prostitution is an offense that not only the Bahamas but the entire world frowns upon. McLean's trial is expected to wrap up in January. But despite this and other recent efforts made by government, including the establishment of the Interministerial Committee on Trafficking in Persons, the development of guidelines for the identification and the assistance to victims of trafficking in persons, and the adoption of a comprehensive law on trafficking in persons in 2008, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Trafficking in Persons, Joy Azello, said a number of changes must still be made by government. She said while the trial of the 2 cases before the magistrate and the Supreme Court sends a strong message to potential traffickers, prosecution rates remain very low considering that the law was enacted 5 years ago. Izzello said the National Plan of Action should set out clear objectives and responsibilities to implement the existing legal framework. She added that the country also lacks a comprehensive assessment of the trends and scope of trafficking and would benefit from establishing a national repertoire or equivalent mechanism with a dedicated budget to monitor the trafficking in persons at a national level. The rapporteur expressed concern that victims are hardly ever identified, and there's the possibility that trafficked persons may be arrested, detained, and deported without the opportunity of being identified and provided necessary assistance. To be clear, though, trafficking in persons is a completely different offense than illegal immigration. The UN official believes that oftentimes illegal immigrants who enter the Bahamas by boat may also be trafficking victims. In her report, she said her concern is also heightened by the fact that victims do not have access to compensation or monthly allowance, nor can they work while awaiting the outcome of legal proceedings, as they are not provided with a work permit during that period, placing victims in situations of vulnerability with the potential to fall back into the hands of traffickers. In her report, Izzello recommends the government improve its national framework on trafficking in persons by developing as soon as possible a national action plan, carrying out a national baseline study, putting in place a comprehensive data collection system, creating an Office of a National Rapporteur, and amending the 2001 Labor Act to provide protection for domestic workers in accordance with international standards. Additionally, Izzello recommends the speedy adjudication of future cases of trafficking. A number of preventative measures are also being recommended to government, including setting up efforts to raise awareness of all forms of human trafficking, encouraging NGOs to conduct sensitization exercises within their organizations, and also launching public media campaigns so that members of the public feel more comfortable reporting cases of trafficking when they know about it. For MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
Amidst outcry from the business community and the general public for more information surrounding value-added tax before the July 1st, 2014 implementation date, pastors today got a crash course in how the new tax regime will be rolled out. Christina McNeil sat in on the meeting and filed this report.
The VAT Implementation Committee today hosting a group of religious leaders, reminding them of the importance of tax reform and the important role they play in educating the Bahamian public. Members of the VAT Implementation Committee calling on members of the Bahamas Christian Council and other church leaders to help depoliticize VAT and educate people on the need for a new tax regime.
You help to depoliticize this process, because this tax reform agenda goes beyond this administration. This administration is not going to solve our fiscal problems. And so whoever the next administration is will need to be on board in what is happening now. There is no need for us to engage engage in the kind of negative and angry conversations that you hear so often coming from the political perspective. And so we need a national conversation.
Consultant Ishmael Lightbourne says there is a need for a national consensus on VAT. This as members of the business community and the Free National Movement have called on government to delay the implementation date and educate members of the public on the tax. Financial Secretary John Roll adds that the church plays a vital role in sharing information and working with the government to implement change.
The churches are involved in a lot of the social outreach, similar to what the government does in terms of assisting those who are in need. And they need to understand, too, in terms of how a reform such as this would impact those on the lower end of the income spectrum and how the government is going to respond. In many cases, the government is a partner with the church in terms of providing charitable activities, in terms of the grants that many churches get from the government, and the churches are also very instrumental operators of schools.
We need more participation and more positive, constructive assessments and dialogue as we go along, because the government needs help. And in fact, the government needs a little bit of backing as well in terms of moving this process along. If we do not do it, we delay and we stop at our peril.
The Ministry of Finance has held several town meetings on VAT, and this is the second such meeting held with religious leaders. Earlier this month, Bahamas Christian Council President Reverend Dr. Ranford Patterson released a statement on VAT, pushing for a debate devoid of politics and a widespread education campaign. However, the church leaders were not prepared to talk to the media on the matter today. Rather, they engaged the VAT committee in a lengthy question and answer period. Roll tells our news team that churches may be interested in how they will be affected by the new taxes.
As a non-profit organization, non-profit activities are exempted from VAT. So in the VAT legislation, there is a provision that for non-profit organizations, this could be the Red Cross as well, or the Salvation Army, your strictly charitable activities could qualify for a refund of the VAT that is incurred on those activities.
The VAT committee will continue public education meetings up to and beyond the implementation date next summer. Reporting for NB12, I'm Christina McNeil.
Well, police have released the identity of the 3-year-old boy struck and killed on St. Vincent Road early Wednesday. Police identified him as Jordash Rashawn C.J. Kemp. Eyewitnesses said his 26-year-old mother was pushing him in a stroller when they were struck. According to eyewitnesses, the child was dragged before the driver fled the scene. We're told the baby's mother remains in hospital in critical condition, unable to speak and capable of moving only one leg. Police are still asking the suspect to surrender to authorities and anyone with information to come forward. Days after executives at the Bahamas Electricity Corporation decided to defer some $1.4 million in Christmas bonuses this year, BEC workers will be getting those bonuses after all. Executive Chairman Leslie Miller confirmed today that bonuses were authorized and will be paid on Tuesday. He told us that after meeting with Minister responsible for BEC, Philip Brave Davis, and Labor Minister Shane Gibson, officials decided this would be the last time the cash-strapped corporation pays out bonuses to staff if BEC is not in a profitable position. President of the Bahamas Electrical Workers Union, Stefano Green, says workers are relieved as they were counting on that money.
Persons anticipate what they are to receive, salary-wise, bonus-wise, whatever benefits they are to receive, and they conduct themselves, their salaries, their benefits, their spending accordingly. And for most of my members who have children, they have already expressed to me that was scheduled to go towards school fees. Others have expressed to me, especially those ones who are off sick, that they will try help to catch up on their doctor bills and buy medication and so forth.
Green said staff at BEC got word from both management and Miller yesterday that bonuses will be paid next week. Miller previously said that he sent a letter on Monday to BEC General Manager Kevin Baisden indicating that a decision was made to defer the bonuses until the corporation is in a position to pay. He insisted that BEC could not afford to pay bonuses when it lost $22.6 million this year. However, Green says it would have been a violation of the union's industrial agreement if bonuses were deferred.
Industrial agreement speaks to certain benefits that each employee who's covered under our bargaining unit would receive. And one of those benefits are, at the end of the year, during Christmas time, a Christmas bonus.
Moving forward, Green says the union is willing to sit with the government to negotiate its industrial agreement. He added the union has a good working relationship with the Deputy Prime Minister. Still to come, NB12 speaks with the youngest person to be called to the bar.